Cary Harrison with you. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good show today, filled with everything you've been thinking, things that you may not have been able to say to others. Plus, we're going to be bringing on, in the next half of the show, an NHL hockey pro who came out of the closet and is specifically showing up here to talk about the importance of all of us not being disappeared or literally painted over like the walls of the Pentagon, literally, just a week ago. Murals about terrific diversity and how the military has taken pride in having really a fully fleshed out military. Well, all that got painted over in gray paint. Yeah. So you're not going to want to miss it as Brock McGillis lays out some brave thinking and inspiration, something we need during these times, as only a professional athlete can do so during these times. We're also live streaming right now on YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison YouTube and subscribe so we can stay connected and tethered in case our signal goes down. Remember, our phones went down last week for no reason, only during this show. So we can stay connected and tethered. Or when you get to your destination, you can switch over to your mobile phone and continue to watch and listen on our Cary Harrison YouTube channel, which you can also find at kpfk.net. kpfk.net will take you straight there. Well, meanwhile, I have to say, during these unimaginable times, I'm heartened to see tens of millions of wide-awake people who have not been guzzling the Kool-Aid of coup d'etat cheerleading. We're given to believe that the entire country is filled with knuckle-walking mountebanks, people whose IQ barely ticks above 80, who seem to overwhelmingly have reelected the Red Lobster. Yeah, we now learn from a friend of the show, Greg Palast, whom we've had on many times before, whose creds include BBC and Rolling Stone and The Guardian, that over 3 million Democratic votes were disappeared by multiple secretaries of state, and that if there hadn't been such a massive voting purge, Kamala, like her or not, she would have won the Electoral College, and we would likely be having a very different conversation right now. Instead, Fox News now controls the entire Pacific Fleet, despite absolute campaign promises to keep America out of foreign wars. We're now threatening to use our military against our North and South allies, both Canada and Mexico, even invading territory of the sovereign country of Denmark, part of the EU, a NATO member. So if you could violate the most basic of your campaign promises, why would anything else actually look, smell, or turn out the way the least skilled among us were so wildly hoodwinked by promises of gold and swimming pools and movie stars and cheap cornflakes? Prices have not gone down, will not go down. The White House has clearly stated that it plans to turn the entire Gaza Strip into a giant commercial real estate venture and hotel region for profit. In what was previously known, let's just take our grandparents' era, and then 1,000 years before that, that was called colonization. Then in the past 20 or 30 years, we made it elegant sounding and called it nation building. And now it's good old-fashioned real estate development and land grab, after expelling nearly 1.8 million people who've lived there for over 1,000 years. You think they're pissed? Well, we broke a story some 6 months ago about the over $6 billion in untapped oil off the Gaza Marine. Predictably, that remains a silent set of spoils, much as the pumping oil derricks were never part of the published nation-building result after invading Iraq. Even now, the new acting undersecretary of the new State Department, a Mr. Darren Beattie, said he recently tweeted, quote, competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work, period. I'll just repeat that in case your windows were down and you didn't quite hear that. Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Now, that's not meant to imply that incompetent white men shouldn't be in charge. It's a linguistic trick to point out that all white men are naturally competent, and specifically excludes 100% of all women on the planet and all other men who are not white, and likely may not even be considered men soon either, as these laws continue to evolve. I know. It can't be, but what you've already seen has happened. And I haven't even mentioned half of what we've seen already. I'm further heartened by seeing brilliant satirical memes. I've received more heads up messages from you than I can even begin to answer, so I apologize. But it's fantastic. And none of this is coming from the old guard Democratic Party, but from you. Thousands and thousands of clever and brilliant sentient people. And it's hugely hopeful that the newly named vice chair of the Democratic National Committee is 25-year-old David Hogg. You might remember him as the young gun control activist and student survivor of the Stoneman Douglas high school shooting. So we're literally beginning to see a reboot of the spineless and withered Pelosi-era party of pabulum promises and paltry performance. That was a quadruple alliteration. I feel really good about it. Erotic, possibly. Young blood has literally risen up in front of our eyes, finally, and there's a good shot that whatever is left of the resistance will actually look and act like proper resistance. So this could be a pivotal moment. Now, I'm going to share with you something from the Daily Beast, which sums up so beautifully just the past couple of weeks of recklessness and chaos, as Mr. Trump would say, the likes of which we have never seen before, because the likes of which we have never seen before. In fact, our Constitution pretty much forbids the likes of this ever to even be imagined, possibly discussed, but never actually executed. This is an article by David Rothkopf, and it's worth taking a minute to absorb for all of its nutrition and reality. Mr. Rothkopf writes, quote, what the Musk-Trump administration's first 2 weeks in office have communicated with gut-wrenching clarity is that the coup attempt on January 6, 2021 has never stopped. What's more, that coup looks very much like it is now succeeding thanks to the fawning, yawning complicity of the supine media. That's good, isn't it? The fawning, yawning complicity of the supine media. Supine means basically you're laying on a chaise lounge holding an iced tea. Also, the timid Democratic leaders, Republican sycophants, and the obliviousness of an electorate apparently unbothered by the slow motion destruction of their own democracy. And the people being targeted by Musk and Trump are not the deep state or those participating in the non-existent invasion at our borders. Nope, he says in the Daily Beast, those directly in the sights of the demolition team setting charges at each of the foundations of America's strength are none other than you and me, the American people. The efforts by the Trump team to supplant the role and authorities assigned to Congress to illegally shut down whole federal agencies, to oust government employees en masse, and to champion culture war, witch hunts are little different from attempts to use violence to stop the transition of power in 2021. This again written in the Daily Beast. It's a great summary. It continues. The reason the law protects civil servants from arbitrary partisan termination is because our elected representatives determined it was in our interest to immunize them from the ebbs and flows, from the passions and stupidities of American politics. When they are systematically fired or forced out of office, as is happening this week all across the government, our voice as an electorate is being ignored. So too our basic interests as people. Was it in our interest for the head of the Federal Aviation Administration to be forced out of office just days before the horrific crash that sent a passenger jet and a military helicopter plunging into D.C.'s Potomac River? Is it in our interests for Trump to fire FBI officials simply because they were enforcing laws that our representatives put in place to protect us on purpose, simply because they were doing their duty? Again, this comes from the Daily Beast. David Rothkopf writes in this article, in the same vein, it is in our interests that are put at risk when the White House illegally stops funding programs created and funded by the Congress to serve us. These risks will be compounded further should Musk and his gang of vandals succeed in seizing control of the mechanisms by which the U.S. government pays its bills, which they're trying to do and which has already led to the resignation of one high-level Treasury Department official. we're getting near the end of this, but it's an extraordinary article because it lays it out. Dan Rather has written another one laying it all out. They just keep coming and keep coming. This is exciting. People aren't just rolling over and disappearing and pretending like if they say nothing, they're going to be loved and cared for. We know this from Stalin. If you join the other side, or if you were a Quisling in World War II and joined the other side for 5 minutes, they took care of you, but they knew you had no integrity. You throw your mother under the bus to save your own skin, so you were the first one to go the second things got ugly. So people who are standing up for who they are and what they believe in, they have a much better shake at surviving all of this stuff. Anyway, he continues to write, it's not just insane that Trump's team is in the midst of a vendetta against people and agencies who serve the vital interests of our country. It's not just outrageous that they feel empowered, whether by the people or a Supreme Court that last year sent a message that our presidents are more like kings than public servants. To do so, it is also deeply damaging. Take the effort that gained steam on Monday in contravention of numerous laws to cut funding and perhaps even erase USAID, or the Agency for International Development. Not simply an effort to cut back our foreign aid spending, which is less than that of every developed country in the world as a percentage of GDP, nor does it just hurt friends and allies in need around the world. It hurts us. It eliminates our influence and leverage and increases that of our rivals in Beijing, the Kremlin, and elsewhere. This is just common sense. I'm parenthetically saying that on my own here. It's just common sense. You see it, you know it, you smell it. He writes further, but then again, everything that is being done benefits our adversaries. Our plans for territorial expansion, our license to Russia to continue its aggression in Ukraine, and for China to make its inevitable move against Taiwan. Our trade wars weaken our alliances and send a message that we are further abandoning the international system we fought 2 wars and spent a century working to help build. And that's just not foreign policy peacocking. That's our country being stripped of vital protections in an ever more perilous world. Does it matter that the administration is wiping references to climate change or trans people from government websites? Certainly, it matters. And it's also surpassingly stupid. A childish stunt equivalent to a kid putting his hands over his ears and shouting la 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 to avoid hearing news he doesn't like. But this is just theater for the crowd, efforts to distract from the real damage that is being done, the fact that people can't take it all in and some are just tuning it out. And that's part of the plot. It's a way to get the space they need to toss their anti-democratic firebombs. It's a way of doing as much damage as possible before the courts step in. And there's no guarantee Trump is going to accept court rulings either, right? There's early signs his administration just won't. This Daily Beast article continues. Quote, I do not recall a day or week-long news cycle with more disturbing news about the state of the presidency and the U.S. government than today and the past 7 days. I think it is fair to say that not since the Civil War has the U.S. seen a greater threat to our system. But I would argue that even during the Civil War, the federal government was better functioning, more guided by the rule of law, and by officials with the interests of people at heart. And I would say, my ancestor being Abraham Lincoln, I would agree. Probably because of the per stirpe luxury there, but it is actually quite true. And my mic sounds hollow because it is probably, hold on just a second here. Let's make sure. Aha. Hold on a second. You're going to hear my microphone suddenly improve greatly in just a second. Let's go to a break. Let me fix the mic. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Stand by. We will be back in just a tick.
This is a reminder. Public accuracy guest. This is a reminder. Public accuracy guest.
Okay.
The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files, CaryHarrison.com. Don't forget we are live streaming on YouTube. The reason for which is when you pull up to your destination, you no longer have to switch off your radio and run, because we are doing a pledge drive and we're going to give some love to the station. I don't want you to miss a minute. So you can just Google Cary Harrison YouTube. Up we come. You can watch visibly and see our openly gay hockey player talk about courage and how to survive as a non-white male, even though he's a white male. But you know what I mean? As the State Department has now declared only white men can run everything. That leaves, half the nation completely out of the picture. It takes a professional athlete to explain what courage looks like. He's coming up in about 20 minutes, so you're going to want to do that. You can go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, to be able to stick with the live YouTube feed and see the videos anytime you want. We're finishing up an article in the Daily Beast. This is written by David Rothkopf. He continues in this article, and now my audio says low. Okay, so let me just say this, and I'm going to pull the fourth wall for everyone listening. It is not my job to do a mic check. I do the mic check. If it's not good on the other side needs to use both ears, left ear, right ear, and tell me, not in the middle of my show, tell me my audio is not good. That's why we do a mic check. That's why we start early, to do all of this stuff. And then telling me in the middle, oh, your mic is off. And then I'm supposed to do that while talking and running 68 parts. It's crazy. So please, let's all do the best professional standards we can here, because our listeners are the most important thing in the world. And we show up to help people. And we can help people if they can hear us well and know that we really, really care deeply. And I do really, really care deeply. So anyway, that audio is fixed. That's why we took a break. While we were in a break, I fixed the audio. But in the future, I know everyone is going to really be focused in advance on making sure everything is perfect. Okay, finishing up this article. It's just insane that Trump's team is in the midst of a vendetta against people and agencies who serve the vital interests of our country. We're going to end with, do not underestimate the historical significance of this lawlessness or the damage that will be done if it's not immediately and resoundingly stopped. If the members of Congress understood or took to heart their oaths of office that they, regardless of party, would step up and say no to the flagrant stripping away of their power. Imagine, really, we're stepping on the toes of Congress. At some point, they are the first branch of government. At some point, they're going to decide they've had it. And they have to go back to their constituents, don't they? And they have to show up in front of 10,000 angry Mildreds who are going to say, what in hell are you doing? And they want to keep their gig. So at some point, they're going to show some resistance too. But they need to know that the public has their back. Obama taught us this, didn't he? A bunch of years ago. He said, look, I can do anything you want, as long as the public has my back. If you tell me to do it, I'll do it. If you don't tell me to do it and you don't support me, I'm not going to run out and stick my head in the guillotine. And he was right, because it is, after all, politics. Ending the article here, he says, this is great. If the members of Congress understood or took to heart their oaths of office, they, regardless of party, would step up and say no to the fragrant stripping away. Fragrant? How about flagrant? Stripping away is fragrant. Yeah, yes, like methane. Stripping away of their power. If the people understood that they are the targets of this onslaught, as they were when their voting rights were curtailed, as they were when companies and billionaires were given the upper hand in our politics via Citizens United, as the vast majority of us will be when our system is further rigged to serve the few at the expense of the many, they would take to the streets and they would not leave. The reality is, though, it will not happen. This is what he writes in the Daily Beast. And who knows, it may even soon be illegal to say so. Most of us will change the channel or scroll to the next social media clip. Most in the media will, both sides, in quotes, the end of our democracy into a melisma of euphemisms and equivocations. We're pretty much already there. Most of our political leaders will focus on the pitch for their next fundraiser email. And if this oblivious, indolent cowardice continues, as I fear it will, We will look back on these days of chaos, destruction, hatred, and lunacy as only a prelude. Unchecked, we are on the path not just to autocracy, but to the worst form of malevolent dictatorship. My reaction, he continues to write in the Daily Beast, is not hysteria. It is not exaggeration. It is not premature. Where we are is a place we have never been in this country, and the threat we face is by no means one that we can survive, because something precious and fragile is at dire risk of being lost. David Rothkopf is in a recent Daily Beast article, an excellent summation that your senses are, in fact, sharp, and what you see and observe is real, and that the emperor indeed has no clothes. It's just better when he wears them, because without them, well, that aesthetic would be unacceptable. We're going to pause in just a couple of seconds, but not right at this moment, to give love to our favorite station here. And reminding you, we're also live streaming right now on YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison YouTube and subscribe so we can stay connected and tethered. If our signal goes down or you show up at your destination, then you can switch over to your mobile phone and continue to watch and listen on our Cary Harrison YouTube channel, which you can also find very easily at kpfk.net. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to look at the Shift Makers Tour, a groundbreaking initiative led by former pro hockey player and trailblazing LGBTQ plus advocate Brock McGillis, the first openly gay men's professional hockey player. This is way more powerful than it would have been 10 years ago, because he is right in the middle of the crosshairs, and so are you if you are, as the State Department pointed out, not a white man. You may be white in skin color, but you might not be the white man they're talking about. You don't exist. You unexist. So how does this guy not only survive and thrive, but as an athlete is going to give us tips on resiliency and owning your own set of cards. His bravery reminds us of the very existential nature of those of us suddenly uninvited from our own government and many of our rapidly anti-DEI private institutions running at the speed of light. Whether it's Google, whether it's Lowe's, Home Depot, doesn't matter. It's happening ubiquitously. Brock McGillis is going to bring the perfect insight and timely inspiration. But right now, we're going to pause, give some love to this beautiful radio station. And on the other side, we are going to talk to Brock McGillis.
Uncensored, unexpurgated, and unapologetic. It's the Cary Harrison Files.
And Cary Harrison with you. This is a time to give some love to KPFK, because we are truly in the crosshairs. I talk about it, but it's true. The head of the FCC, the new head of the FCC, has declared 100% that all public radio, that includes our NPR sister stations, that includes all of us, the 300 affiliates in Pacifica, that includes PBS, all on the crosshairs, the chopping block to get rid of. How do we know this is happening already? There is now one official news organization at the Pentagon. The Pentagon always had the AP, it had Reuters, it had this, it had that, it had everybody with a desk in there so that we could cover, the Defense Department. Everyone's been blown out except for Breitbart News. I haven't heard that name in years, have you? Breitbart News. That is the only, according to Pete Hegseth and the Trump administration, I know you just feel drunk when you say it. That is apparently the only legitimate news organ in the United States, e pluribus unum. Whatever you think of CNN or CBS or ABC or NBC or CNBC or Bloomberg or anybody else, Breitbart is the only one that's going to be able to tell the story, which means others have to retell the Breitbart story and try to figure out where it's at. That's just there. The rest of it is coming. We are in the crosshairs. So we're asking you to support us by picking up the phone and making a donation of whatever you can. I would recommend $75, $100, $150. It is a legacy donation that will last, because everything we do ends up as a permanent podcast. I'm live streaming right now on YouTube. That goes out across the world, and we actually educate kids. You know, I was in Switzerland last summer teaching international kids, 10 to 14, how to do media, but how to do a special kind of media, how to do research, find out what's true, look at propaganda, spot it out, so that they can help people older than than them and help their peers so that we have a shot of somebody in the resistance, very much like David Hogg now as the vice chair in the Democratic Party at 25 years old. So pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a donation. By the way, KPFK is collaborating with Habitat for Humanity in LA during this February fund drive. If you make a donation to KPFK during this drive, a portion of that donation is going to go to rebuilding and recovery efforts to those who have lost homes in the recent California wildfires. That would be somebody you know for sure. Levels can vary if you want to give us $60, 75, 100, 500, 1,000. Habitat for Humanity LA is going to receive a portion of your donation to KPFK. The more you give, the more we can help our friends right now who are suffering from the effects of the recent devastating California wildfires. The more we can give, the better. You make the decision on how much you can give. As always, every dollar is greatly appreciated and will go to help the people that need it. Supporting families affected by natural disasters requires immediate and collaborative efforts. Habitat LA helps with immediate support to affected families, and in the long term, helps communities recover and regain the capacity to rebuild their lives. The need for quality shelter and housing will remain for months or years after the fires as these wildfires continue to ravage Southern California. These are the ways you can help support with relief efforts. And your support will give the means to rebuild lives, to rebuild homes, to rebuild communities. If you have a personal story to tell that would be good, it seems we all know someone who has lost everything in these wildfires. And here's a good site for stats about the fires. You can go to fire.ca.gov, fire.ca.gov. Please pick up the phone, call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make that donation, whatever fits for you. Here at the Cary Harrison Files, we're not going to tell you how much. There is nothing here except the obvious. Somebody is showing up for you, saying the things that maybe you can't say or get away with, and different from using just digital media. Analog media, in other words, broadcast radio, has become sexy again. Why? Because when you say something on a live stream, the bots will come and clobber it and attack it and make it go away, and you get canceled. In analog radio, despite the FCC being taken over by and enlisted in Project 2025, including specifically this station, it still goes out. It breaks through windshields, it hits all the cars on the freeways, and it doesn't matter. We can actually say stuff here that you cannot say online. I mean, how amazing is that? It's like World War II with a AM or a long wave radio. Woo! Hello, London. I mean, here we are again. We have this extraordinary resource, the strongest FM west of the Mississippi. We're banging all the way down to the border of Mexico, all the way up almost to San Francisco, and on the way out to Nevada. It is the strongest FM west of the Mississippi, and we're providing news and information that is not available anywhere else. If you don't have a subscription to the Daily Beast, you wouldn't have seen that article, wouldn't even have heard about it. We get to talk about that here. That's why supporting this means it not only supports our opportunity to do it, but I personally take the next level. We live stream this. I take it to schools and teach kids how to do journalism, how to read between the lines, how to understand propaganda, all of that, so they can take that to their friends, to their universe, and even use it in their own academic disciplines so that they're not rinsing and repeating, but they're using critical thinking. And you who listen to KPFK, you do use critical thinking. You do understand the value of it. You do know how much it matters and how much you love it. You do know how it will change your life and how it will, in fact, be the solution to what's going on right now, because you can see it and therefore you can navigate it. If you can't see it, you can't navigate it, and then the horse is way too far out of the barn. So I want you to pick up the phone right now and call 818-985-KPFK. Please pick up that phone, call 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735. $60, 75, 100, 500, $1,000. Habitat Humanity LA is going to receive a portion of your donation to KPFK, so you're also helping your neighbors. The more we give, the more we can help our neighbors, help our friends, help millions of people who we may never meet, but they will meet us because they will know it came from us. We stand for something here. We are the good folks here right now, and we are fighting the fight. We're fighting it on so many different levels, just not through news and information, but through physical action right now. Please pick up that phone, call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a donation to support and help your fellow Angelenos, to make it support and help yourself by even getting information you didn't know was available, or even hearing, resonating with thinking that you think is only your own, and you're too afraid to tell your neighbors because, maybe they're that way. But you're not alone. You are not alone. I promise you. You are surrounded by tens of millions of people, and you are not alone. And I am not alone. I mean, what do I get out of it? This. I get fellowship. I get community. I get to be in your orbit, and you have my back, and I have your back. Maybe your clock radio is set to KPFK to wake you up. Maybe you listen to KPFK while you get ready for your day, during your lunch break, on your way home at the end, or maybe on your way to work, as it might be during this morning show. When you think about it, you probably spend a lot of time with us. And we thank you for making us part of your routine. It's a privilege to be part of your life, which is part of the reason that we're doing all this. We know that our listeners and viewers, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, go to kpfk.net. You'll see the live video stream and our upcoming guest in just a couple of minutes, a pro hockey player who came out, who can tell us how to be strong during these times. We know you rely on our programs. We know that we can rely on you to help this service continue. So please call right now and show your financial support at any level, and allow us to collaborate with Habitat for Humanity LA, who gets to receive a portion of your donation to KPFK to make things better for all the people who've been burnt out, quite literally. Show your financial support for this station. Pick up the phone, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-KPFK. Once again, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Whatever you can do, $60, $75, $100, $500, why not? And remember, it goes out live over the antenna, but then this renders into a podcast, or in YouTube, it has a permanent shelf life. Think of that $100 ends up being 1 penny in the value. It can last for years. People in Lithuania will hear it. People who are under crushing Hungarian Orbanism will hear it. People in this country who are also in the crosshairs or have been painted over, like at the Pentagon, they will hear it. We are not alone, but we must suit up and show up in order to not remain alone. So final call to action, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Please pick up the phone, make the donation that you can, and know that you have done something that matters. Coming up, we're going to talk, well, this guy is great. We're going to look at the Shift Makers Tour, a groundbreaking initiative led by former pro hockey player and trailblazing LGBTQ plus advocate Brock McGillis, the first openly gay men's professional hockey player. His bravery reminds us of the very existential nature of those of us suddenly uninvited from our own government and many of our rapidly anti-DEI private institutions. Brock McGillis brings the perfect insight and timely inspiration, and it's next here on the Cary Harrison Files.
This is the Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
Okay. Are we in a break or am I back? Somebody tell me, because that was... I assume we're in a break.
Uncensored, unexpurgated, and unapologetic. It's the Cary Harrison Files.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Cary Harrison with you. Glad to be with you. Well, I am excited for the next one because in these difficult times when nobody can wrap their head around it, people who stand up for you and others and have been doing so for some years have built a certain kind of expertise that you and I really need to learn from. We're going to unravel a tale of ice, of courage, and the rarest of human traits, authenticity. The arena, the United States of America. The combatants, not merely swinging sticks, but young hockey players armed with an even deadlier weapon, conviction. And leading the charge like a modern hero through the temple of tradition is Brock McGillis, the first openly gay NHL hockey player who dared to challenge the untouchable gospel of hockey culture. In 2023, he embarked on a chaotic quest across Canada, 100 minor hockey teams, 100 in just 100 days, saying, "Be yourself, break conformity, stand up for one another." Well, the Shift Makers Tour, as it's now known, is no ordinary tour. It's a clarion call, a battle cry against the unspoken rules that govern locker rooms and silent dissent. Brock made history by coming out in 2016 as was the first openly gay professional hockey player, and since then, he's been at the forefront of changing sports culture, earning accolades like the Hockey News 100 Most Influential People in Hockey and Queerty's Pride 50. He's backed by the NHL, NHLPA, the Seattle Kraken, Chicago Blackhawks, and our own Warner Brothers right down the street. The Shift Makers Tour is tackling racism, homophobia, and sexism in hockey by inspiring young athletes to foster inclusive environments where everyone belongs. Now he's bringing his mission to the U.S. for the first time. And here on the Cary Harrison Files, we are happy to roll out our network red carpet and welcome you, Brock McGillis.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for that intro. I'm going to take you on the road with me.
Yes, it was. I like lofty encomiums for people who deserve them, and you deserve it. Something about professional athletes who see the world in a different way really helps all of us because I think we've been raised since ancient Greece and the Olympics to look at great athletes as people who have special skill sets. And your awareness, your enlightenment is something that many of us don't have. We wish we had. And so we want to see the world through your eyes. And you've been in a game where toughness is king, hockey, where conformity is stitched into every jersey. What possessed you to challenge the code of silence?
Well, I struggled a lot being gay in this sport. I felt like I couldn't be myself and do what I love, so I suppressed who I was and adhered to the stereotypes and tropes of a hockey bro. I was a womanizer, I partied hard, I was cocky, I was also really depressed and self-harming and drinking heavily, and it derailed my career, candidly. And I felt like I needed to do something. And after I came out and I started getting opportunities to speak and seeing impact, people would say, well, you can't be everywhere. Well, you can't be everywhere. And it was almost dismissive. And I always felt like, well, the competitor in me, the athlete in me came out and I said, oh, I'm going to show you. And in 2023, I decided, you know what? I'm going to do it across Canada. And I launched what was then called Culture Shift Tour, now Shift Makers, where I went to 100 hockey teams in 100 days across Canada. And this year, I did year 2 in Canada, and I went to 140 teams in 80-something days, coast to coast. and it's just so powerful and so cool because I'm gay and there's some themes about LGBTQ plus. My story is my story, but it's about so much more than that. And I felt like, what better time? There's no better time to bring it to the U.S. than now. And I just finished in Canada about a week and a half ago, and then I was on a plane to Seattle and starting an American tour.
Well, we're glad you're here. And if you like to look at handsome hockey players, you can check it out right now on our YouTube stream where you can see it in video. Simply Google Cary Harrison YouTube and subscribe. That way we can stay connected and tethered when you show up at your destination. Then you can switch over to your mobile phone, continue to watch and listen on our Cary Harrison YouTube channel. You can also find it easily at kpfk.net, kpfk.net. I also am gay, it turns out, Brock. I just made that decision in the last 3 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Same history as you, minus the hockey. I boozed myself into oblivion because I couldn't deal with who and what I was. I was raised in a world that made it, well, it was illegal, I guess. It certainly was in my father's mind. And in the town I lived in, we simply didn't have those people. There wasn't even a word for it. And here we are, for many of us, feeling like, here we go again. It's the 1950s. You have to wear a pocket square or foulard or make a secret handshake to get away with it, at least here south of Canada. Let's talk a little about bravery, because I think everyone's trying to figure out how can they hold their integrity, be who they are in times where they don't feel like they have support. I think you're...
Listen, well, it's still legal. The Cary Harrison Files.
There we go, Brock. You were frozen there.
Sorry. Yeah, hotel Wi-Fi doesn't seem to be my friend.
Well, you're our friend. So give us some thoughts on fortitude and congruency with your nature, being who you are, even though not everyone may love it at the moment. But certainly you're backed by the NHL. You're backed by the Hawks, my home team. I'm from Chicago.
Yes.
Even the brothers Warner, whatever's left of them. I mean, that's a giant bunch of people saying you're cool. So amidst all of that, like, how do we suit up and show up for who we really are when we're told right now, not cool?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is, listen, 10% of people are going to love you unconditionally, and 10% of people are going to hate you unconditionally. But there's 80% in the middle. And I think with those people, whether we're talking, politics right now in America is an interesting time, to say the least.
We love Canadians. You put it so beautiful. I'm just going to parenthetically, there's a joke. How do you get 10 Canadians out of a swimming pool?
How?
Ask.
It's true. We're polite, we're kind, but I think the thing is, for me, is that I think twofold. Number one, I think we have to show people, and I don't know if we always do a good job of this, is that, okay, you're worried about the price of eggs, and I'm using eggs because that seems to be all that anyone's talking about in America right now. You're worried about insulin? So are we. And we're aligned on a lot of things. We just also need you to align on this. No different than we need, them to recognize the impact of language, behaviors, and attitudes and start to stand up to it and have the bravery and courage. We need our allies in this moment. But we ourselves just got to keep living. I was a little afraid to come to the U.S. I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm going to pretty progressive spots. Like, I get to pick and choose. But I was still a little concerned. And I went, well, I got to keep living. I remember one time I went to a small town in rural Alberta, like way up north, like an oil town in northern Alberta. It was like minus 60 degrees and snowing, which is wild. And they're like, well, we're a little concerned about your safety. And I almost didn't go. But I thought about it and I went, well, there's kids here who are queer, who are gay, who are going to hear that I didn't show up because I was concerned about my safety, and they have to live there every day. The more we exist and set the tone, set the intention, show young people, no, keep existing. No, we've gone through this, we've gone through worse, and we've come out the other side, and we will again. I think for our community too, I think we have to look at a number of things. I think we got complacent. I think there was a little bit of time where we got incredibly complacent. We had enough rights. We were comfortable. And we didn't advocate anymore. And I think we need advocates again. I think we need activism, but we also need advocates on the inside who are pushing in and saying, hey, they're going to come at you if you don't start shifting this. And we need to work together as advocates and activists to evolve it.
Well put. We're talking right now to Brock McGillis. He's founder of the Shift Makers Tour, tackling racism, homophobia, and sexism in hockey by inspiring young athletes to foster inclusive environments where everyone belongs. He's been featured in the New York Times, also been backed by the NHL, Chicago Blackhawks, Seattle Kraken, Warner Brothers right next door to us here. And during these strange times, his voice is one of inspiration and a reminder that there are no second-class seats on the actual playing field of life. So in the locker room, which has a monodimensional single music note of culture, you just brought in, bassoons and trumpets and cellos. Is there a way you can help the rest of us, like get out of the freaked out, sit in the corner and hide part? Like, where do you find that inner strength?
I think for me, it's just, I think I look at it like, hey, you either sit there and dwell. It's no different than my coming out. Part of my coming out is because a dear friend of mine ended up on a terrorist hit list. And he was hosting a charity event and said, I don't think you should come. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm a target. And I said, well, are you going? He said, yeah. I said, I'm coming with you. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be scared out of here. And I went with him. And the next day I called a journalist and said, I'm coming out. I think now, more so than ever, we're going to see our community, and we have throughout time. This is where, more people are going to stand up and come out. More people are going to create art, music, different things. It's going to be a catalyst for an evolution of our community. And we're going to see it happen in real time. I think we just have to just ground ourselves a little and go, okay, I'm currently in LA. I can take a breath. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't some places where it's more red and I can't have my voice heard. I'm going to make sure it's heard. And also, I think we need to engage with people so that we sort of meet them where they're at a little bit. Like, I go into hockey locker rooms, from professionals to kids. And I go into corporates in different places, but in particular, those hockey locker rooms aren't, what somebody would assume to be the most welcoming places.
No, one would not assume that.
And my goal in there is, like, if I can disarm them, if I can make them laugh in the first 5 minutes, I've won. And I've had rooms where I've had players from Russia who, like, literally do not want to be there, and by the end are thanking. When we humanize issues, I think people are good by nature. I don't think everyone's evil. I truly don't. I think there's a lot of really good people in the world. When we humanize issues and show them the impact versus calling them names, I think they'll be more receptive to rallying around it. And from there, teach them how. I talk about being a shift maker. And it's because when I retired from playing, I was working with hockey players, and I hid my sexuality from them because I was afraid they wouldn't want to work with me if they knew I was gay. Well, I came to find out they all knew. And I started observing their behaviors, kind of like animals in the wild, hockey players in their natural habitat. And started to notice that anytime they'd say something homophobic, they'd freeze up and apologize to me. And initially I thought, cool, maybe they just like me because I'm one of the guys. I go on the ice and chirp them. We go in the gym and I out bench press all of them. And for anyone listening, don't forget that. But maybe they go and use slurs and bully, harass, and hate queer people else. Then one day I wasn't there and I had a sprint coach working with some athletes on the track. And at the end of a 2-hour workout, he told them they had 10 more sprints. And a younger player looked at the sprint coach and said, "This is so gay." And an older player who's turning pro looked at the younger player and said, "We don't say that here. Give me 50 push-ups." And that became something my athletes adopted amongst themselves. That guy that day created a shift in 100 athletes where they started taking it with them everywhere they went. He created a shift in me where I realized the impact I could have. Really, because of that guy, it came out. Because of that guy, I do the work I do. Because of that guy, thousands of people have come to me over the years who have been struggling in some cases in life and death situations. And not just LGBTQ plus related. And I've been able to get them support. And so that guy that day, the small little shift, the ripple effect is it saved lives. So if we focus on our small little shifts, they will have massive impacts. But first, we need to humanize and engage and talk with people. We just can't scream at everyone and call them a bigot. There are some bigots. Don't get me wrong. And after we do that, if they're still not receptive, then okay, you're one of that 10%.
Well, just as we come to the end here, I have a friend who's a gay Marine. I have actually several friends who are gay Marines. I mean, the toughest, they've won battle medals, battlefield promotions, and they are the most popular in their troop. It turns out, in their self-reflecting, the way you're doing brilliantly for us here right now, is they're the most trusted because they know who they are, they're focused, and they understand the importance of loyalty and keeping an oath, because they have to do that on a daily basis. You have to come out every single day. You don't come out once and there it's done. Every day you get up and you have to choose to come out again. And it is an act of extraordinary bravery, especially during these times. So thank you for being the lighthouse in the middle of stormy seas when we forget and think we ought to just run and hide, and therefore we will be liked by the bullies. And we know that bullies actually despise people who appear weak and cowardly to them, but they do respect people who know who and what they are. So it's a call to action, as you point out, for us to be congruent with our nature, to find that integrity, take that risk, and most importantly, recognize community, because there are hundreds of millions of us. 10% of live upright mammals. Mammals are same-sexual, from giraffes to penguins to seagulls, even fruit flies, which are not mammals. So it is a naturally occurring phenomenon that cannot be dismissed for any kind of PR reason. It is a fact of nature, and it is meant by the universe because it's productive, not counterproductive. It builds cultures, it builds art, music, gives people a reason to live, things to strive for, builds imagination, and pushes toward the future. And you, as an athlete, have done that and then changed a culture from with inside. And that's pretty amazing, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. And one thing you said just really struck me. It's the community aspect. I think sometimes we eat each other alive and we got to pick each other up right now. And we got to come together. And it's wild, but even you look at younger generations, like Gen Z is identifying as LGBTQ plus at close to 25%. Like it's higher than we even imagined. And it's because they can finally be themselves. And we can't take that away from them. We can't let it happen.
And we won't, because of you. We're out of time, regrettably, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Cary Harrison Files. We've been talking to Brock McGillis, founder of Shift Makers Tour, tackling racism, homophobia, sexism in hockey by inspiring young athletes to foster inclusive environments where everyone belongs. It's been featured in the New York Times, also backed by the NHL, Chicago Blackhawks, Seattle Kraken, Warner Brothers right next door to us here. And during these strange times, your voice, Brock, is one of inspiration and a reminder that there are no second-class seats on our actual playing field of life. Let's just take the last minute and acknowledge KPFK, reminding you to pick up the phone right now and support us because we're doing this good work. This is brave. This is brave when the Pentagon has painted over the murals that talk about the pride that they had with diversity in the military, having all these different cool people fighting together alongside each other. All of that has been painted over in gray. You can pick up the phone and know that we are out there fighting the good fight and bringing people like Brock on the air. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please pick up the phone. Please make a donation. Please do everything you can to support independent media while we are still here. Please do that, 818-985-KPFK, and just know that we're also collaborating where your donation is going to help people that have suffered from the fire. It's an extraordinary blend of awesomeness today at 818-985-KPFK, 50, 100, 150, whatever you can do, it does matter. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Cary Harrison with you. Very much enjoy seeing you. Don't forget, you can see the end of this live stream at kpfk.net, the Cary Harrison YouTube channel, and keep giving and keep supporting because your voice matters and your voice comes through our analog signal. So let's keep this thing cooking. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Cary Harrison with you. See you next time.
Uncensored, unexpurgated, and unapologetic. It's the Cary Harrison Files.